create your free listing on www.connector.com. In light of the current climate in America, it's more important than ever for communities to come together. Are you a business owner looking to make a positive impact in your community? Now is the perfect time to take action. By creating a free listing on Connector.com, you can help build a new digital beloved community where everyone thrives. Your business can be a vital resource for residents, offering essential services and fostering connections. By joining our platform, you not only gain visibility, but also contribute to a network that embodies inclusivity, support, and empowerment. Don't wait. Create your free listing on Connector.com, download the app, and help us shape a beloved community for all. Faith in every thread, style in every step. Shop a Stylish Heart faith-based sweatshirts today. www.astylishheart.com. Welcome to a Widow Story Podcast. My name is Kim, and I am your host. Before we get started, if you haven't done so already, please go make sure that you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share. So, today, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to pass over my little microphone of a host and give it to my good friend over here, Santel Fields. Yay! So, guys, I just wanted to let you know that I have struggled so hard to find a way to tell my story. You know, we're always like this perfectionist. We try to be perfect in everything that we do. And so, I'm no different. And so, of course, I have been recording over and over again my story, and I haven't been able to do so. I don't think it looks good at all. So she came up with this bright plan. She's like, oh, well, let's just talk about it. I'm like, that sounds like a plan. So that's what we're going to do. And yeah, this will be my story. So
whatever comes out.
Let's be nice. Now,
I will be.
I want to be authentic. I want to, definitely tell my story. And I'm so thankful that you decided to help me with this. So, yes.
Well, I'm excited too. I think hopefully you don't be mad at me at the end of it. I think that I know all your deepest, darkest secrets.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I was definitely very involved in the moments leading up to you losing your husband, and then the difficult moments afterwards. So, guys, I know all the juicy stuff too. But
so yeah.
So I think it's easy for you. I mean, I feel like we talk about it all the time, and so and you're very open and authentic when we talk. So I think that this will help you just be able to share in a more authentic way, where it's not forced. It's kind of just us girls talking.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll be more comfortable.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And then I think I can get more out of you versus what you feel like is politically correct,
right,
or what you feel like everybody wants to hear. It won't be staged. It would just be like us talking. So
yeah.
What do you think? You ready?
I'm ready.
So where do we start? Where do you want to start? I'll give you that.
I guess I kind of start at the beginning.
Okay.
So, just kind of like my core memory of Chris at the very beginning. I met him very, very early on in life. So he was in my mom's 5th grade class. And I remember there was a time where he used to kind of like act up in school, right? And so she decided that, to reward him, she would take him out to eat. There used to be a Morrison's cafeteria. I believe that was the name of it here. And so she was going to take him out to eat for dinner in Morrison's cafeteria. And we went to eat there, and I didn't like him. I didn't like him at the time because I didn't want him coming with us to eat. I was just like, why is he here? But that was like my first core memory of him. And so I kind of knew him, of course, throughout, like growing up in time, like he was, in school with me, but we did not meet again until like we were an adult. And I went to a concert, and I heard somebody calling my name, and they were just like, Kim, Kim. And I was just like, who is this person? And I don't know if he was excited that he had seen me or if he was going to get the opportunity to talk to my mom again, because that was the first thing. He was just like, call your mom for me, call your mom. And so that was kind of like the beginning of our story, really, for us being together was at that moment. So,
and how old were you then?
I think I was like 25, maybe. Yeah, I think I was like 25 when it happened. So yeah, when we met each other, yeah, really young. And then of course we ended up getting married. We had kids, and yeah, that's the way that worked.
Well, what was it about Chris that made you fall for him and fall in love with him after that meeting? Because if you ask me, y'all were opposites.
Yes.
Definitely. So what happened? What did he do to just make you be like, he's the one?
Chris like forced himself on me.
So I knew that. So that's why I was trying to. It wasn't like, ooh,
it
butterflies and rainbows.
It was not butterflies and rainbows. No.
In the beginning.
No, I remember he came to me. He was just like, anything you do for 7 days is gonna be a habit. So I'm gonna be here for 7 days straight, every day, all day long. Like I'm gonna be here. And I was just like, whatever. Like I did not even want to talk to him. I was just like, whatever. But he just kind of like showed up and kind of just, kind of showed out. And so that is what, he was just around. And I was just like, I really do like this dude, And so that's how it happened. But initially, no, I was just like, whatever, like,
right,
not gonna happen. But he definitely did that. And then one thing you have to know about Chris is like, he is such a likable person, right? So like he caters to everything, and it's the small things. Like it, it is things that you don't even know you need it. Like he was like, wait a minute, did I even need this? But he'll make you like just, you know what I'm saying? Like he loved that about him. One thing that he used to do was Chris used to buy me flowers like every week. Okay. So he would go out, he'll buy me flowers. Sometimes, it may just be one bouquet. Then some weeks it may be, 3 or 4 bouquets. And he'll buy the vases, he'll cut the stems, he'll do all of those things. And I come home and it's like flowers. But I hate flowers. Like I hate flowers. And a lot of people might not even know why I hate flowers is because my uncle owned funeral homes. And I just remember as a little girl, I would go to funeral homes, going to the funeral home, and it'll be flowers. And that's how the funeral home smelled to me. So when I smell flowers,
that's what you think.
Yes.
You think about dead people. Okay.
But even though I hate flowers, Chris still did it. And he knew it, but he still bought me the flowers. He was just like, no, this is what, you deserve flowers, And I miss that the most, you know what I'm saying? It's like those little small details, like things that I didn't know that I even like receiving flowers, right? Because of me associating that with a funeral home.
Right.
But I miss it so much. I wish that, you know what I'm saying, like I could walk home and there'll be flowers waiting on me, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's funny how when you say like he's just a likable guy, because of course I had a chance to be very much part of y'all relationship. I feel like a lot of times I'd be like, that's my husband too. But that's who he was. He just he loved everyone, and if you was his person or if you were in his circle, then he was going to do everything to make you comfortable. And so that I think that's what I cherish most about him is how comfortable he always made me when I was around you guys. I felt like when I would come in town, I was more excited about what me and Chris had planned than, or even what he had planned for us. Because he would even, plan stuff for us to do. But I think that that's what I love most about him is how much he showed his love versus just saying it. And we all know that there's different types of love. But I know for me, when I was around, he showed me that he loved me as your friend and that I was always welcome. So I know that's off topic, but
Yeah, no. That's good though, because I remember you sent me a picture just like not even maybe a month or two ago,
right,
maybe. And you
right.
was like, and it's like this glass, guys, and it's like a glass of like wine.
It was
And it's like
blueberry
blueberries, and
wine.
he put like blueberries in it, like fresh blueberries, and I don't know what else he put in it, right?
It was like blueberry and raspberries.
Yes. And so she sent me a picture. She was like, "Oh, I miss our time together." And now she was like, "Wait a minute,
No,
it
really.
it wasn't even
It
you."
wasn't you that I missed because Chris made me this wine. And anytime he knew I was coming, he would make sure I have wine. He would ask me what we want for dinner. And
Mhm.
so yeah, when I looked at the picture, of course, first I thought about our times when I was there with you
Mhm.
guys, um, when I would come in town. But then so I first associated with you, like our
Right.
friendship and all. I miss when we hung out when I was there. But the more I looked at the picture, I was like, no, it was Chris that made me feel comfortable. It was Chris that made sure I had what I needed. It was him that made sure I ate what I wanted to eat when I came in town. And he made sure he had my wine and whatever I wanted. He made sure the bed was made for me.
Mhm.
So it was funny because at first I was like, oh, I miss my friend so much.
You're
And then I
like,
was like, well, I think I miss Chris too. So that's funny, but that's just says a lot about who he was, and
mhm.
one of the things that I truly felt was one of his best um, attributes, or was the way he fathered y'all kids. And
Yeah.
I remember I would still be sleeping. I would wake up to um, him getting the kids ready for school and turning on loud whatever motivational person they were listening to that morning.
Mhm.
And to me, that was that was him, like motivating, getting up, getting his kids ready for school. I remember laying in the bed and I could just hear him, rumbling around the living room, getting the kids ready. And also, he always had something on the TV that was um, teaching him something or
Mhm.
motivating the kids or just some type of um, something that kind of just kind of makes your brain work every
Yeah.
morning. So that was one of the things that I loved
Yeah.
about him. So I think we know he was a great friend, but he was a really really good father too.
Yes.
And speaking of him being a good father, what do you miss? Is that one? I mean, I think I know the answer, but um, is that one of the things that you miss most about not having him?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I think that, I never wanted, of course, I don't know if anybody ever wants to be, a widow, want to lose a
Right.
spouse, but
Right.
I definitely didn't want to be a widow. That was like a big struggle for me becoming a single parent.
So let me ask you this: Do did you, prior to him passing, have you ever thought about like being a widow, or was it you never wanted to be a single mom? So never want to be a widow and never want to be a single mom is two different things. So I think you're trying to sugarcoat it, like I didn't want to be a widow, but I I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it's not that you. I mean, who thinks about that I might be a widow? Like I was married 19 years and I never thought I would be a widow. Now, what I did think about was I'm not raising these kids by myself.
Good question. I kind of feel like a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I loved being married,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to be a widow because I don't want to be single, just single in my relationship wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't want to be that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I didn't want to be a single parent either. Like you said, like Chris did a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it made me feel like a bad parent. But anyway, he did a lot for those boys, and it would be times where I would be just stressed out, and he would literally get off work. He'll go get them. He'll be gone all day just to give me a break for the day. And then he would be like, he'll call. He was like, "Are you good? Like, are you ready to go to bed? Get in bed, and then we'll come home." That's how it is. And it's like, yeah, who's gonna do that for
Right,
me? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So it's like, who's gonna help me? So I was not ready for that. I wasn't ready for my boys to instantly become a statistic. No matter what the situation is, they still have to deal with not having a father in the home, right? So then, now there's all these statistics that make things that much harder for them. And so I didn't want that. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to raise boys. One thing that I've heard my father tell me is that I used to do everything, because I have two brothers that are older, and I used to do everything. I used to try to do everything that they were doing. And then it was like one day I woke up and realized I was a girl, right? And then I
you never went back.
I never went back. And so for me, that's like true, because I'm just like, I do not, I don't mow the grass. I don't do these things. So how am I going to teach them how to do those things, And so that was difficult, and it's still difficult for me. It's a little bit better, but it's still difficult for me. So I didn't, not only that, I think another thing that I struggled with a lot was just making the decisions, when you have, you're married to someone, and you have like another parent, and you're able to make a decision. If you mess up your kid's life, you can kind of be like, "Oh well,
we messed it up.
We messed it up together, right?"
How I blame my husband. Hey, look, that part was your fault.
Right. It's like, "Oh, we messed it up together," but now it's all on me. So I'm like, that's a lot of weight on my shoulder. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of weight on my shoulder.
So you don't have anyone to share the accountability with.
Right. Yeah. If I can't pay the bills, it's all on me. Like, there's nobody else there. So I didn't want to be in that space. I was actually, for a long time, I was mad at Chris. I was mad at him for, deciding to buy another scooter, for getting on the scooter and not putting a helmet on. Mine, he's never worn a helmet ever. But for this particular case, I'm like, why did you not have a helmet on?
So let's go back. So do the viewers know that it was a sudden accident? I feel like we're jumping. So let's talk about you left to go. Where did you go? To the store?
I went to go run an errand. It was basically, I had that boutique, and so someone had placed an order, and they wanted, they asked me if I could deliver it, and so I had told them yes.
Do you remember the day of the week it was? Was it a Thursday?
It was Tuesday, August the 10th.
Okay.
Tuesday, August the 10th.
What's funny is, so at that time, I was coming in on Monday. I was driving to Atlanta on Monday and staying the night with you. And then, so Monday night, I would stay the night with you, sometimes Tuesday night, and then go back home Wednesday. I was in school in Atlanta. So I remember I was done with school. So it was the first, I thought it was Thursday, but Tuesday. So it was the first week that I didn't come to y'all in a whole year.
Yeah.
And I remember you calling me. So let's go back to that day. So I knew that you left the house to go run an errand, and Chris was at home.
And so, yeah, we had talked that morning, and I remember I told him that I was going to go run an errand. He told me that he was going to, just go do some stuff, because he was preparing he told me he had clients later on that day. And so I remember I saw him walking down into the basement, and when I got ready to leave, I opened the basement door, and I called his name, but he didn't answer. I didn't think nothing of it. I was just like, oh, maybe he walked outside, that's what happened. So I was like, I'll just call him when I get in the car. So I get in the car, And I call him and he didn't answer. And I questioned it a little bit. I'm like, what is he doing?
Mm-hmm.
But I still was not that worried, like no red flags, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I run a little errand. It was really quickly. On the way back, I saw Panera Bread. I was like, let me get some lunch. I still remember what I ordered. I ordered a hummus sandwich and broccoli and cheddar soup. And so I come back home, I see his truck parked outside, and like I'm excited because I'm just like, he's still here so he can eat. I go in and I call his name, I'm looking for him, and he didn't answer. So I was just like, is he sitting outside in the truck? Like, did I pass him, when I
Mm-hmm.
came in and he didn't say anything? So I go outside and I can see that clearly I can see he's not in the truck. But I'm still walking towards the truck. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time, I had my phone in my hand, so I'm calling him. And as I get to the truck, I see that his phone is on the front seat.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately see that the glove department is up and there's like some money hanging out. And at the same time, I see the door is unlocked. So I get mad because I'm just like, why would you leave the door unlocked with this money hanging out? Like, come on,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? And so I open the door because I'm about to lock the door. I open the door, and as I open the door, then like it's an Escalade, so it's like this little middle console and it's up, and I see that his wallet is in there with his credit cards. So immediately at that moment, I get like this knot in the bottom of my stomach. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just like it just starts like I don't know, turning. And so I was thinking, because it was during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that something had happened. You had heard about people that were just like passing out at the time, right? So I'm thinking he is passed out in this house somewhere from COVID. So now I run back into the house and I am just like pulling back shower curtains. I'm looking for him, calling his name. I'm just searching. I'm all in the basement, up in the attic. I'm running around the house and I can't find him. So now I am worried because I know something is not right. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I called a friend and I was just telling her, I said, this is going to sound really silly. I said, I think Chris is missing. And so, mind you, it hadn't even been like 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, like, he a grown man. So I'm just like, he missing. And they were just like, well, no, if you think something's wrong, then something probably really is wrong. And I'm telling them what, the events, like how everything is in the car and
Mm-hmm.
I can't find them. And so I was like, let me call his sister. I call his sister. I was like, hey, have you talked to Chris? Have you seen him? And she was just like, Chris, he's
Mm-hmm.
probably out riding his scooter. Now, mind you, Chris had 2 other scooters already,
Right.
okay? So when she said that, I thought to myself, you're probably right. I wanted that to be true,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I knew it wasn't. So I was still not settled. Like I was just still uneasy. But I hung up the phone. I called my friend back and I was like, I'm finna go search the neighborhood. I'm gonna get in my car and I'm gonna ride around and see if he on his scooter. I could have just went into the basement and checked to see if
Yeah.
the scooters were down there, but I didn't even do that. I was just like, I'm gonna go and check anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They was like, call the police. I was like, the police not gonna show up. Like, this a grown man. He
Right.
hasn't
Right.
been
Right.
gone for 2 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think they were gonna come. And so they were just like, well, I'm gonna call anyway, because her husband was on the phone. He was just like, I'm gonna call. And I left. I went searching for him. I couldn't find him. You know, Chris, you witnessed this. Chris has a lot of homeless friends that really do love him.
In the neighborhood,
Yes,
he does.
he does. And I asked them, I was just like, have you seen them? They're like, no, we haven't seen them. And so I come back home and another one of my friends who I was supposed to meet at my house, she was waiting for me. I get out the car, I'm just like, this is gonna sound so silly because I'm saying it to myself. This does not make sense. I don't know what's
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but I know something's wrong. But he's missing because that's all I could think of was he's missing. You know what
right,
I'm saying?
right.
And so she was just like, well, have you checked the cameras? I was like, oh, duh. Like, we do have cameras, right?
And a lot of them.
So I was just like, let me check the cameras. So I checked the cameras, and all I can see was when I saw him go downstairs in the basement. I never saw him come back up, and I never saw him left the house, leave the house. So I was just like, this is crazy. Now, by this time, the police pull up because my friends had called. So they pull up, and, they're going through all of their due diligence. There's more police coming to the house. They're searching the house. They're going through the footage. They're knocking on neighbors' doors. And I'm just like a nervous wreck. You know what I'm saying? So during this time, and I want to mention this because I want to revisit this at some point. I'm standing up in the living room. My friend is there and the police are there. And I feel like something just happens, right? And so I sit down. And when I sit down, I tell, I'm looking at my friend. I'm like, I don't know what just happened, but I'm no longer worried. Like, I'm no longer worried. I'm okay. I know mentally that something is wrong with Chris, but all the worry that I had is gone. It was just the weirdest thing. I could not explain it. It was just like, I'm standing up. I'm completely troubled. I'm completely anxious, worried, just sick to my stomach. And then just like that, it was gone. And it just took me by surprise because I didn't know where it went and I didn't know what happened. But I knew that there was something still wrong. So that night, I ended up going through his email, and that's when I discovered that I found a receipt where he had purchased a new scooter, and he had purchased a new scooter, and it had supposedly been delivered on that previous day, which was Monday. So I was like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm gonna go downstairs and I'm gonna look for that scooter. And so that morning when I woke up, I was able to get my oldest off to school, Christian, off to school. And right when I got him off to school, investigators showed up. There was 2 investigators. So I didn't even have a chance to go down there to look for the scooter prior. And so I remember I told them, what had happened. We talked for a moment, that I had found that he had purchased another scooter, but I didn't know if it was there or not. And so they were just like, okay. So they searched the house again. We went downstairs, and that's when I saw the box. And when I saw the box, I told them, I was like, here it is right here. And they were like, okay, that changes things. So we're going to go and, call around to, local hospitals to see if maybe there's like a John Doe.
Because prior to that, you did eventually check to see if the scooters were down there. And the 2 scooters that you knew that he had was there.
Right.
So that kind of ruled out that he was out and about on a scooter.
Right.
Until you saw the receipt for a new scooter.
Right.
That was now not there.
Right. Right. And so I was like, okay. They were like, oh, give us a couple of hours. We'll be back. We'll touch base with you. And so I was just like, okay. And at this point, like, I'm trying to get my youngest, off to school, and it wasn't even 20 minutes. And there was, I can't remember if they rang the doorbell or knocked at the door, but it was one of those. And it was just one of them this time. And it was the lady, and she was just like, we found Chris. And she was just saying that they had found the John Doe, at the hospital, and the person had got hit while riding a scooter, not even a mile away from my house, and they felt very strongly that it was him. And she told me then that it was looking really bad for him, which I knew. Immediately I knew. When they found him, I was just like, oh, if you found him and he hasn't called me, then I already know
worst
that
case scenario.
It's worst case scenario, right? So made it to the hospital. When I got there, the doctors were in the room with him. He was in ICU. The doctors were in there, and they met me, and they were just like, he didn't have a gag reflex, nor was his pupils dilating, and he hasn't been responsive since he had originally got to the hospital, I knew immediately that he was like dead, right? I knew that. But I had this little glimmer of hope because there was this piece in it that about, if I can just pause there, if possible, that prior to all of this happening, Chris was going through this transition where he had quit his job. And so he had quit his job and he wanted to do Uber driving, or that's what initially he told me, which I didn't understand, but I was going to go with it, right? I was just like, okay. Or, doing some kind of type of driving services. And during this time when all this happened, like instead of me being like worried about all of this kind of stuff, like I was really like calm about it. And usually Chris is the calm person and I'm the one that's more anxious about our finances, but it was reversed. So Chris was more anxious about the finances and I wasn't, but I was just like, no. Like find what you love, do what you love. If working for Uber and all of these things are gonna, you know what I'm saying, is going to make you happy, then do that. So there was a point in time where Chris had put his application in because he applied for Uber and Lyft first. So he had put in his application and they had denied his application. And he had woke me up in the middle of the night to tell me about it. And I rolled over and it wasn't even a thought process. Like, I was just like, it's a mistake. I was just like, that's a mistake. Like, they don't have a reason to deny you. You need to contact them because, yeah, why would they deny you? And so the next morning, I had to go to work. And I woke up and I just remember, Chris helping, take my machine out to my car like he did every morning. And I got into the car, backed out the driveway. I remember making it to that first stop sign, taking a right and going out the neighborhood. And as I was going out the neighborhood, I remember I started praying. And when I started praying, I don't remember anything that whole trip. When I finished praying, I was at work. That was like an hour drive. I don't know how I got to work. You know what I'm saying? All I remember is when I started praying and I remember when I ended. And so when I got out of work that day, I called him and he was like, you were right. They messed up. They processed my application twice. And now, they deleted the second one. So now everything is good. And so I was like, I knew it. Like I knew it or whatever. And so on my drive back home, God was like, I need you to fast. Right. And so I didn't know why I was going to be fasting, but I didn't even question it. Like, I was like, oh, okay. And it was because like I had this calming spirit, like, you know what I'm saying? And so I remember when I got home, I told Chris, I was like, I think God wants me to fast. And he was like, what you fasting for? I was like, I don't know. I just got this crazy faith. I'm just going to fast. I'm like, I don't know what I'm fasting for. I don't know how long this fast is supposed to be. But I'm like, I guess he'll tell me when to stop. So I'm just going to start. And so I literally, I started, fasting. And so, during that time, like, you know, that happened. And then of course he, we fast forward in that moment and he started working for a driving company. And even though I didn't see his vision for making money, I want to say that Chris was definitely on track to really making like really good money. He started working for a driving company. And I mean, this is all within like a matter of months, right? So we went from looking like, I was like, we finna work for Uber and we want to get an Escalade, to being able to like, oh, we can afford an Escalade. I get it. Okay. And whatever, and doing it. So I really thought that we was in a good space. So now we jump back into the moment. This is Wednesday, August the 11th, and the doctors are now telling me they think that he's brain dead. And I was like, I know he's dead, but I've been fasting, right? I'm like, it's about to be a medical miracle. Like, okay, I'm still sad, like whatever, but I just feel like something's about to happen. They're like, oh, we're not going to make a final determination until tomorrow.
Mhm.
We're going to do a test. We're going to see if there's any kind of, blood flow, any kind of brain activity, like, blood flow, whatever
Mhm.
going on before we actually give our final diagnosis. So I was like, okay, I go home, I write in my prayer journal, I do all these things, but I know that he about to be okay. Like, I know this is about to be a battle. We about to be fighting this. I think it's gonna be a long journey,
Mhm.
right?
But you had a piece that he was gonna be okay.
Right.
Mhm.
And so we go back the next morning, they do the test, come back, and they pronounce him brain dead. There was no blood flow, you
Mhm.
know? And so I immediately get mad. Like, I'm upset now because I was confused. I was just like, I was for sure that they were gonna find something. Like, there was
Mhm.
this like glimmer of hope that they was gonna say, okay, we're gonna keep going and
Mhm.
whatever. No. It was like he's brain dead. And so I just remember after that, just like, walking out of the ICU, going to, like, there was a waiting area and there was a drink machine. And I saw that drink machine and I was like, God, I should just drink this soda. Because why have I been fasting and Chris died? Like, what was the purpose of that? You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? I
Mhm.
was just like, this is crazy. And so I was just, at that moment, I just remember being so upset, like so mad. I did not drink the soda. I want to say that. I didn't drink the soda. I was scared. But I was just like, I just don't, I didn't understand the purpose of everything.
Yeah. If
So,
you didn't, if you told me to fast, I listened. I fast,
right,
not knowing what was about to happen, and so now I have this crazy faith
right,
that I'm believing, like, God. Oh, so you were preparing me for this, so I have peace because I know you're going to make sure he's okay.
right,
And then the doctors tell you he's not okay.
right. And green, like, mine, I fasted, like, it was like, right, I was obedient. I didn't even question it. Like, sometimes we question stuff. I
Mhm.
didn't even question this. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, I'm about to fast. And so I guess, like, fasting, I'm like, things are getting better. He's getting this
Mhm.
position and he's making money
Mhm.
and things are looking up for us and,
Mhm.
whatever. And so, of course, I guess that you are always just wanting to see the good in what you're doing, right? It's like I was obedient to your
Mhm.
word and what you
Mhm.
told me to
Mhm.
do. So, of course,
So why wouldn't you give me what I wanted?
why would you not give me what I want? So
Mhm.
why did it end like this? You know what I'm saying? So that was where I had like this, I was struggling with that. I was
Mhm.
struggling with this process, so I couldn't figure that out. Um, so and that's where I guess like I went for the next couple of days. I was just really like confused. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? If I could give,
Mhm.
kind of quantify my feelings, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It was kind of like confused. Um,
So do you feel like you was because I know, um, we was planning, um, like his services or what's next before, he was officially, you know, he or we before they pulled the plug or whatever. Um, and when I think about it now, of course, I think that time was crazy. But when I think about it now and talking to you, I feel like you were so strong. Like I felt like looking back on it, there was a piece.
there was a piece. So the part that you're probably remembering is I started planning before they actually, because I donated his organs.
Yes, yes.
So
Okay.
he was still kept, you know, um, I guess you could say alive on a
Right,
machine for
right,
about a week
right.
later, until they can get.
So the gotcha.
And
So
so,
I do remember we were waiting to donate
mhm,
his organs, but
yeah,
we were still like trying to figure out like, okay,
mhm,
so when we're gonna do this, when we're gonna do that.
right.
Gotcha.
So now I did not know then, right, that I had this piece, right,
Mhm.
about me. I was still moving. I was kind of in a daze. So what I do remember is like even during that time, like like everybody was talking to me, they was coming to me, they were just saying, you know how people try to give you advice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess I shouldn't say try because it's nice of them to give you
Mm-hmm.
advice. So people were giving me advice
Mm-hmm.
about how things were gonna be. Just like, you may not be able to sleep or you may not be able to do this and it's okay to grieve and you need to talk to someone, you need to do all of these things. And people were giving me advice, but now prior to this, I had two friends that had previously lost their husband. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I had kind of what I call kind of like a blueprint, right? I kind of had a front row seat as to how things were for them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was another reason why I didn't want to be a widow because I did not want what they had went through. Like I
Mm-hmm.
saw how hard it was for them. I saw how depressed they were. And I guess that for me, what I called it was being stuck. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I did not want to be stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So, in those moments, I went and I joined a Facebook group. Like, it was like a support group for widows, widowers. And I joined it. And so, one night, I was sitting in my bed and I don't really know the timeline of when all this happened to afterwards, but um I was sitting in my bed and I'm going through, this Facebook app or post or the
Mm-hmm.
post or the group or whatever and I'm reading the post and I just remember that the first post I get to and I read is about a lady. She was young and I want to say like they were in their 20s and her husband like dropped dead in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And she tried to do CPR to save him and she couldn't revive him. And she talked about how, she had kind of like, I guess you could say like survivor's remorse, so if
Mm-hmm.
that's what you call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had that and because she just felt like she couldn't save him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, thank you, God. I was like, thank you, God, that Chris did not die in my house. And thank you, God, that I didn't have the responsibility to try to save him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what I'm saying? I didn't, that was just gonna be too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
Then, how we on social media, so we just keep scrolling, right? I go to the next post and I read about a mother who now has like, she has like 5 or 6 kids and they're all under
Mm-hmm.
the age of 10.
Mm.
And I'm just like,
Well, that's not me.
I was like,
thank God.
thank you, God. Like, I was like, thank you, God, that I only have two because I don't know what I would do if
Mm-hmm.
I had, more than the two that I have, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
already going to be a struggle. So then I go to the next story, and it's like a mother, and her kid is not even born yet. And so now she's dealing with the grief of not only losing a spouse, but now that she's going to be bringing the kid into this
By
world
herself.
by herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, thank you, God, that though I am scared for my boys, that they got moments with their father, you know. And so I keep scrolling and I'm just steady reading. And then I read another story and it's about, a lady who was a stay-at-home mom and she didn't have a job and
Mm-hmm.
now her husband has died and she doesn't have a way to, what I'm saying,
Provide.
provide for
Mm-hmm.
her family,
Mm-hmm.
because she hasn't worked and she's like in this struggle of losing everything, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And I was just like, thank you, God. I was just like, that I have a job, right? That I'm going to be able to provide for my boys. And at that moment, I was just like, God, I don't want to be stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even have a reason to complain. I don't have, I should be so grateful. Like, I literally was in this moment of feeling sorry for myself, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And being sad to being like, girl, why are you crying right now? Because there are so many people that have it worse than you.
Mm-hmm.
Your situation is bad, but somebody else has it worse, right?
So I'm gonna tell you, it's that's a thing. That's a thing. And I don't know if it's a healthy thing or not. And I say it's a thing only because my daughter brought it up to me. Kiera brought it up to me maybe like a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always feel like I'm not as bad. I'm not that bad. Like someone else has it worse. But in a book she was reading, I wish I could remember what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a way of, so the way my daughter put it to me was, it's a way of me not feeling kind of like bad, sad or bad for yourself. So it was a way, it was kind of like a coping mechanism for you to make sure you didn't feel as bad as you could have felt. You know what I mean? But I'm going to tell you what my daughter said that the book was telling her was, when you do that, you kind of discredit what you're going through and your own emotions. And what it does is it kind of makes you angry with other people who you feel can't relate, or who you feel don't understand your situation. It kind of puts a disconnect between you and that other person, or you and your family members, because you're not really letting them see the hurt, because you're not really, you're kind of dumbing down your experience. So I feel like sometimes it's a good thing, but then sometimes I think it's a coping mechanism for us to, I mean, it's easy for us to say, to tell ourselves, I'm not that bad. So I
Right.
mean,
I get it.
so kind of not having pity for yourself. Um but at the same time, your struggle was your struggle. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
lost your husband,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, maybe you didn't lose a husband and you have 6 kids you can't feed, but you lost your husband and you have 2 kids that don't have a father anymore.
Right.
So I feel like I think in that moment it was a coping mechanism for
Mm-hmm.
you, but part of it I feel like is not so healthy, only because I feel like you're discrediting
How I felt.
your true emotions,
Mm-hmm.
or, well, I can't be that sad because, or my situation ain't that bad because.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is, dog, it was bad. like
It was bad.
like I know that we laugh and we joke a
Right.
whole lot to get through stuff, and I can even remember, seriously, I can remember us going to the funeral home, and us laughing, me and you. I
Mm-hmm.
don't even remember what it was about, but I do remember like walking into literally walking in, and I don't even think it was the funeral home we ended up going with. I think it was someone we were checking out or something.
Yeah.
But I remember us like walking in there laughing, because, so I feel like, I mean, that's how we, kind of deal with stuff. But I do feel like, Kim, it was bad.
I mean, it was bad.
Like it was like to wake up,
Right.
and I remember, I think you called me the night of the first night,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that night. So like after the police had left,
Mm-hmm.
and you were like, he's missing.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that, like, he's missing. I'm like, what? What?
Yeah. No, it was bad. It was just in that moment of reading those stories, that's just like how I felt,
Like
right?
it's not that bad.
It's not that bad in that moment,
Moment. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I knew that it was really bad still, right? And then I also knew that like I said, I had that blueprint from, I was like, you first off, you already know there's so many people around you. So a lot of things that happen in the beginning, you have more strength, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
you're able to do more. So me knowing that, I know that like I'm moving because everybody else is around, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But there's gonna be a moment when everybody is gonna leave,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so I'm knowing all of these things, and then I'm reading this at this time, and I'm saying, that's what I'm saying at this moment. And I just remember just telling God, like, Lord, I don't want to be stuck.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be stuck. I was like, I want to only do things your way. I'm like, I need you. I
Mhm.
didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't know who to talk to. I don't know, like, these stories. Yes, I'm glad that it wasn't me, but I still know that it was going to be
Like
still a struggle, right?
I still got some things I'm gonna have to deal with.
Right.
Right.
I still know this. In this moment, it may be okay, but I just was just like, okay, I know it's going to be bad, and I did not know what to do. And I just remember I just like called out to him. I surrendered. I was like, I don't know what to do. I need you to help me. I'm only going to be able to get through this with you. I do not want to be stuck. I don't want to be stuck. I just kept saying it because I was like, God, please help me. I don't want to be stuck. I don't want
And
to be
what
stuck.
does stuck look like for you? What
Stuck
did you think it looked like for you?
for me, stuck meant not being able to move, being so full of grief that I couldn't get out the bed, that I was just like, just had this overwhelming sense of, I guess you say, despair, like a loss of hope, like not knowing what tomorrow was going to look like, or just being depressed,
And you got that, you think, from the two friends who had already lost, and you saw
Right.
them stuck,
Right.
and you just knew that I can't be stuck.
Yeah, I just knew, like, I can't be stuck. Like, I just did not want to be stuck. And so, as I'm talking to him and I'm having this conversation, with him, really, I'm just kind of crying out to him that I need him. God was just kind of like, it's okay. Like, I've given you peace, you
Mm-hmm.
know? He was just like, you have peace. And I didn't really understand. So then he took me back to that moment. Remember when I was in my living room, and when I was, in there the day that he was missing, and how I kind of like was just worried one moment and I wasn't worried. And he was like, I gave you peace. Like, that's the peace that I put over you. You know what I'm saying? And so I was just like, okay, I remember that. And so he was just like, I've done this for you before. And I was just like, I was just kind of like, okay. And so I didn't really remember. And he took me back to 2015. I had delivered my daughter stillborn. And I just remember at that time where the nurse was in there checking on me, and I told the nurse I had to push. And she was just like, no, don't push. You got to wait for the doctor. And I just pushed anyway. And so when I just remember after I pushed, I felt like somebody took a bucket of water and it just splashed on me. And I turned my head to the left and I went to sleep. Now, during that process, I don't know how long I was asleep. I remember that my mom was there with me, during that time. And like Chris and my dad was at home with Christian. And so when I woke up, everybody was in the room. I don't know like the amount of time that had passed or whatever. But after that, like, I just had this sense of peace on me. And he was just like, I've done that for you before. Like, why did you think I wouldn't do it for you this time? And so as I look back on how I was moving during those times when people say, quote unquote, that I was strong, because I don't think I'm strong, right? But I think that I had this peace that just allowed me to move a little bit easier, right? And so that's what that was. And I remember even like the night that um after they had pronounced him dead, I was just thinking I was gonna be up all night, like worried and scared and all these things, because now Chris isn't at home with me, right? And I slept, and I remember when I woke up, I was feeling so guilty. And I felt guilty because I was like, why did I go to sleep? Like, why did I rest peacefully, last night? And I know that my husband died. And you know what I'm saying? So even with that, I didn't know what was going on. And I was asking God, I was like, well, was this peace? And he was just like, it's peace. Like, I'm giving you peace. You know what I'm saying? So it just allowed me, to me, peace for me was just allowing me to move. It didn't stop me from, still missing Chris, or still wishing that, even to this day, I wish that he would walk through the door. But it allowed me to move. I'm able to move a little bit more freely, you know what I'm saying? Just make steps. I guess you can
And
say.
I think that's a lot. I mean, that's good because, when trauma happens, I think our natural reaction for our body is to just shut down.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that you move and that was your piece. You know, like you said, you didn't want to be stuck.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that people on the outside did take it as strength. Um, because I think that that's what it was. I mean, you had to have something in you to continue to one, be there for the kids,
Yeah.
because I mean, how do you tell two boys that has had their dad and very present, who's waking them up, who's picking them up from school, who's taking them, you know, where they need to go, that he's gone? Like, how do you? And
Right.
then Christian was how old?
12.
12.
Mhm.
So he was very, I mean, 12-year-old, you're very much aware of, you know, what's going on and in death, and
Mhm.
he's not coming back, you
Right.
know. So I mean, I think that for you to be able to continue for them is definitely was a sign of strength. And I think we sometimes we don't know that we have it in us until, you know, of course things happen and we have to. But I know that sometimes you felt guilty because Chris was so hands on with the kids, and you'd be like, "What you want me to do?" Like, or I'm about to go. But I feel like that was a blessing in disguise, because they did have that time with him. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
They have you now, but they did have him and had him very present and hands on um, with 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 them. So.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, the youngest one, of course, like now, I mean, he doesn't really remember a lot about his dad because he had just turned 4.
Mhm.
So he was really young. It was really weird because there would be times, before Chris died, that not Christian, Ashton, I mix their names up all the time, but that Ashton um, he would be crying, right? If his dad didn't come home on time.
Mhm.
So he'd
Mhm.
be crying. And so when Chris passed, I didn't really know how to explain to him, like, how do you explain to him,
That
like,
he's not
what
come home.
death is
Mhm.
or he's not coming? He never asked.
Mhm. I remember us talking about that.
Yeah, like he didn't ask. And I was just like, well, as soon as he asked me about Chris, I'm gonna tell him,
Mhm.
that's when I'll explain to him. He didn't. It took him 2 weeks. It was just like
Mhm.
weird. I mean, you talking about somebody that's like always asking about his
Mhm.
dad every
Mhm.
day,
Mhm.
and then he literally just did not ask about him.
Mhm.
And so it was just really strange. He was like where he would like kind of like be acting up like at daycare and stuff.
Mhm.
He completely stopped. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? It
Mhm.
was just like he knew something was different.
Mhm.
And so it's really crazy. And now, that he's growing up, I say all the time that he has his dad in him, like he's like
Mhm. Mhm.
reincarnated with his dad because he acts just like his dad,
Mhm.
like just like him. Oh my gosh. But he doesn't really remember much, so I have to try to keep his memory alive for like pictures, or I
Mhm.
show him
Mhm.
videos or things
Mhm.
like that. Where Christian definitely has like those
Those
memories.
memories,
Yeah,
yeah.
so he's quick to try to bring up memories. Like, yeah, I remember when Dad blah blah blah. So
Mhm.
he keeps his own memories alive. So
Right,
it's
right.
like it's
But
different,
just
but yeah.
helping Ashton see pictures and
Yeah.
kind of helps him. Cuz
Yes.
4 is pretty. So what I remember is Ashton being a daddy's boy. Like, you know,
Mhm.
like I remember him not wanting me, not wanting you. He wants his
Mhm.
dad. And I think I remember one night I babysat for y'all to go out, and you kept, I want my dad, I want my dad. He never asked about you. He just wanted his dad. But that's funny. So
Yeah.
I think that that's good to keep, you know, pictures and videos for him
Yeah.
to remember him.
Yeah.
Let's see what else juicy we can talk about. I'm trying to think. Let's see. So we covered, you know, leading up, um, and then his death. And then let's talk about so soon after his death,
Mhm.
kind of almost to me, I feel like it was almost immediately, but my timeline, your timeline probably is not the same. But I feel like you decided to move, that you just had to leave Atlanta.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
about how
I did make the decision. Well, I'm not gonna say it was immediate that I made the decision, but it was pretty fast that I made the decision. Um, the house was a lot of unused space.
mm-hmm,
Okay, so of course there was like the main floor, which was the floor that we lived on, and then there was a basement, which
mm-hmm,
was the full length of the house, underneath. And then we had a full walk up attic, which
mm-hmm,
is kind of unusual, right? But it was a full walk up attic, and it was complete length of the house as well, but it was all unfinished.
mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm a little scary. So it was a lot of space and opportunity for stuff to happen for me to be there by myself with those
With the
boys,
kids.
right?
Mm-hmm,
So I knew, and I loved that house. Like I
mm-hmm.
loved it. I loved the porch. I loved
Me too.
everything about it. But I knew that I probably wasn't gonna be able to stay there. And so I knew I was gonna go somewhere. I didn't really know where at the time, if I was just gonna move like somewhere into the like Atlanta Metroplex or where I was gonna go. So I did make the decision to go to move back to Dallas. Um,
And how long after
we
Chris'
didn't.
death did you decide to move? So I think you went back and forth for a little bit, like what you needed to do or what you wanted to do.
Um, it may have been maybe like a month or two after his death is
Mm-hmm.
when I decided that I was gonna
So that's pretty
to
quick.
move. Yeah, but I didn't leave until like June.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time to pack that house up by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And well, let me say this: I didn't really pack the house up. I kind of sold it all away. So I sold everything, but it took me a long time
To
to
get
kind of
to yeah.
to get to that
Mm-hmm.
point and to um the things that I were gonna, that I was packing up to pack up and to move.
So do you think so I know that a lot went into leaving the house and moving, but do you think that it was it was because it was too much house, or do you think that you needed to leave Chris there?
I did need to leave. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you think about it, like where he actually passed
Mm-hmm.
was, not even a mile away from my house,
Right,
right? So
right.
I was constantly going by. Um, the Remember I said that the homeless people loved him. They
Mm-hmm.
actually like built like a little tribute for him, and like um, it was a lot, and just being in the house for me was just like it was it was probably too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? For a while, I even Christian probably don't want nobody to know this, but I made them all sleep with me. Him and Ashton sleep with me because I was like scared to be in the house because it was just like it was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
house. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
was scared to be there, and you know, yeah, I think the memories were probably too much for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to leave,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was just. I mean, I think I made the right decision, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I just say that because, of course, we have a mutual friend who lost her husband, and I remember her just needing to leave what the house that they had, just
Mhm.
not needing to be there, or not,
Yeah.
and I don't know, not needing or just feeling overwhelmed by,
Mhm.
of the fact that this is where all our memories are. This is our house. This is so I do feel like sometimes it. I don't know if everyone has to do that, but I do feel like sometimes you have to let's box all this shit up, kind of, sort of,
Yeah.
and let me see what's next.
Yeah, I definitely that was kind of how I felt like in order for me to move forward, I felt like I needed to do that,
Mhm. Mhm.
for me to just kind of let go. It's kind of like a healing thing
Mhm.
for me, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know. I don't want it to be like, of course I was just like, oh, screw him, whatever. But
No.
yeah.
But I think that that's part of that peace and strength, because knowing what you need in the moment, or just seeing that just because this worked for us,
Mhm.
what worked for us is not gonna work for me and these boys now. And
Yeah.
just being able to handle that part, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? I think that that's big, to be able to say that this isn't gonna, he's not here anymore, and this was us,
Right.
and now I have to find out what I am and what me and the boys are now that he's gone,
Yeah.
and doing whatever is best for y'all, not what people think you should do, or not worried about what people gonna say, because my husband's only been gone 2 months, and I'm I'm packed up and moving and
I'm ready
moving.
to go. I'm ready to go.
So I feel like that says a lot. And then some people don't. Some people can stay, and
Mhm.
I'm just glad that you saw that
Yeah.
was, I think factors played a part in you making that decision, but I do feel like I think you knew that the only way to move forward is to move forward.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that says a lot, and I'm sure you contribute that to just the peace, and praying, and um, so we talked about how you fast, then he passed. Do you feel like the fast was for you and not him?
The fast was definitely for me.
Mhm.
It was for
Mhm.
me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, God kind of told me that. He was like, you were not fasting for Chris to
To
live.
live,
You know,
absolutely.
you were fasting for peace. You were fasting for this peace that I was giving you. And he was just like, that was your reward for being obedient. If I'm honest, I would give the peace back to have him. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But I was thankful for that because, just when I moved, one thing about it is that as crazy as I did, I like I said, I sold everything in the house. I got rid of everything in the house. I didn't want anything, not even like a towel or, a fork or spoon. I didn't bring anything with me other than our clothes. And there was one table and this rug and picture that Chris had purchased for me for my boutique. And then that was it,
Mhm.
right? Everything else was gone,
Mhm.
right? But then I ended up moving into basically the same neighborhood that we lived in before. And I remember when God was telling me to move in this neighborhood, because I'm just like, I'm waiting for you to tell me what to do now. Because now I remember, like, I told God, hey, I'm doing whatever you want me to do.
Mhm.
I'm following you. This is your show now,
Mhm.
right? So I'm like, I'm waiting for you to tell me where to go. And he told me to go back to this neighborhood. And I was a little confused by that because I was just like, how is this gonna work? I just got rid of everything, right?
So that I
And
wouldn't,
so that I wouldn't have
memories,
all
and
these
yeah,
memories
in
and
your
I could kind of
face.
just move on.
Mhm.
And now I go right back to a place that we lived previously for like 3 years together and into basically the same neighborhood with like the same friend group and
Mhm.
everything. And it was kind of like I was a little nervous, to do that. But it all like kind of worked out in the end because this is kind of like where I needed to be.
Mhm.
But I lost my train of thought. That's what getting old do for you.
Well, I think we're covering a lot. So, but we were
uh,
just talking about like getting rid of the memories, and
oh,
what being next for you. And I say getting rid of the memories, but I don't want people to think you just tried to just forget that you had a husband.
oh no, no, no.
And I don't want people to think that the peace did not mean you weren't crying.
Oh
The peace
yeah,
did not mean you wasn't grieving. It didn't mean you weren't mad. It didn't mean, um, it didn't mean anything. Peace just meant, like you said, you were still able to move, and you were
yeah,
still able to be a mom.
yeah,
I think that that's what the peace gave you. Um,
for me, and I was still
Yeah.
able. I think people were, you know what? I don't know if I was saying this or not, but this is what's in my head. But I was also just kind of like able to talk about it. I just remember when I was, when I came back or when people talked to me, people were just like, they would talk to me. Some people, when they saw me, they didn't know that he had passed, and
Mhm.
so they were asking me about him, and I was like, oh, he passed. And they were like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then I'd be like, thank you. And then like, I know this is like really hard, so don't worry about telling me what happened. And I'm okay with talking about it.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
what I'm saying, I'm okay with keeping his memory alive. Chris was well liked in this community as well because a lot of people liked him. He was like a football coach. He was all these
Mhm.
things. So a lot of people knew him. And so I was like, okay, so even when people were coming to me, it was just giving me that I guess you could say like that piece to be able to even to speak about him. I wasn't just all choked up and crying
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Um, I just had this piece so I could just like I can talk about him. I can talk about the situation. I keep his memory alive without, and that's crazy because moving on and healing, even when I say like, oh, I was getting rid of these, material things, but I'm able to talk about him and keep his memory alive. And it doesn't make me cry. It doesn't make me go inward. It doesn't make me like
Mhm.
not want to talk about him now,
Mhm.
right? Because I got this piece. I can just speak freely about him, situation, because I'm just like, gosh, like, like God is so good. Like, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so um I think that that's the one thing I could think like about that's so positive about my piece is that I'm able to keep his memory alive. And it's just like I could just shout it from the mountaintops and it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah.
That's good. I think that that's really good. Um, if it was one thing you feel like you need to portray or get across with your podcast, what would be the one the I mean, I know that's kind of hard, but for you, kind of like what is your why? Maybe that's what I'm saying. And I know we heard a little bit in your intro. I know that God it was one because God told you you had to tell your story.
Mhm.
Um but sometimes when God tells us things, we choose not to listen.
A lot of
Or
times.
we find reasons why we can't do it or why not right now. So I guess what my question is, one, what are you getting out of doing the podcast?
Mhm.
And then two, what do you want everyone else to get out of you doing it? Is kind of my question.
Gotcha. So I want to say first and foremost is that I probably am doing it more selfish for me. I was not really thinking about really like what anyone can really get out of it, right?
Mhm.
So, I do feel like God had told me to do this podcast, and I did not want to do it at all. I struggle, of course, a lot with talking in front of the camera and all those things. So it's just, it wasn't. I wasn't happy about doing
Mhm.
it. One thing about this whole time in this journey that I've been going, with God is trying to get, more into the word. I've always been a person, I was raised up in the church, all these kind of things, but I did not I I wasn't or I hadn't built that relationship for myself.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So once I, told God that I needed him and I needed his help and I just wanted, to do it his way, I feel like God put this joy in my heart
Mhm.
that it's just like kind of undescribable, right? But it was like I had never felt it. And I just remember like there was this one day and I was like, I'm so happy, right? Now I'm still going through struggles over here, right? Like I'm struggling financially, I'm struggling being, a single mom. I have all these struggles, but I'm so happy. And it's just like this feeling in my heart, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, gosh, like, is this what they used to talk about in church when they say, oh, get your own relationship with God, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Experience them for yourself because you're not going to know him until you experience them
Mhm.
for yourself. Because
Right.
I was like, dang, I've been missing out. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I felt this, right? And so then, of course, when God was telling me to, when I, to tell my story, and I didn't really know how, and I kind of was just like, okay, I don't want to do it. And I just kept moving. And then he came back. He introduced me to this scripture. I probably heard this scripture probably about 10 times within maybe a week. Everybody was talking about this scripture in Matthew. And I'm so sorry that I don't know the actual scripture off the back of my head, but the scripture was talking about how, you were going to go to God and you're going to be like, but God, didn't I prophesy? Didn't I do all of these things in your name? And then God is going to say, I don't know you. Right? I feel like God was talking to me, and he was like, I'm telling you to tell your story because I gave you this peace. I gave you this joy. I'm giving you all of these things, you know what I'm saying? And you're not going to share it. So you're basically denying who I am, really. You're saying that you love me, right? But then you're kind of like being this person that you don't want to step on people's toes and be like, God is good. God can do this. If he did it for me, he can do it for you. This. Like, I didn't, you don't want to be, I guess, come across like churchy. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I was going to feel. And I was just like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, I was just like, I may get denied this feeling of joy if I don't speak out, right? If I don't do what he's saying and tell people, how good he's been to me, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna figure this out. You know what I'm saying? Because I felt like that's what God was telling me, like, I'm gonna deny you. And so I made the choice. I was just like, I don't have a choice but to figure it out, right? Because I refuse to not, or to be separated from this feeling that he's giving me. And so that was my selfish reason, right? I'm just trying not to be denied, right? I'm trying to be like.
So do you understand that? That I know that he's telling you, and you're being obedient because, I mean, you're being obedient, but you're kicking and fighting while you're doing it,
right?
And I think that happens a lot with almost everybody. When God's sending you, you're like, I'm doing it, but I mean, I could be doing something else, Jesus,
right?
But I do feel like, yes, God is going to give you what you want out of being obedient. But I really think that what you're going to find is that it's not for you.
And this is crazy because that's kind of how I feel like when I did the video, kind of like a little, not the introduction video, but kind of like the little video when I was walking around.
Oh yeah.
Okay. When I did that video, people were like, there's going to be so many people healed. And I was just like, well, who's going to be like, I'm not doing this for healing, and that's, I mean, that's real. Like, that's how, because I'm doing this to be strictly obedience, God. Right. And even when I did the introduction, I was saying I would just write a book, because for me, I'm being obedient, right?
Yeah, because I'm telling
my story, and I was dead serious. If nobody read that book, I'm not gonna be upset about it. Like,
because again, you still thought it was about you,
right? And so that's where I was. And then when people were like saying like, "Oh, this is so good," I was just kind of like, it was like pressure. I was just like, wait a minute. Ooh. I don't want this pressure, right? Because
what is funny is, and this has nothing to do with your podcast, but what is funny is that's exactly the same feeling I got when God told me to do the nonprofit or whatever. And then it blew up. And then it was like, we had a program and it was amazing, and girls got saved, and all these, I mean, like, miraculous things happened during this event that really wasn't even supposed to be a churchy kind of event, you know? And the next day or even that night, knowing that God called me to do this, and I'm doing it, but as soon as I realize, like, people, this is for somebody else, it ain't really for me.
Right.
The pressure instantly, because it goes from you just doing what you want to do, thinking I'm just gonna talk, I'm on whatever I want to say, I'm gonna say however I want to do this, we're gonna work through this, but it's about me. When you find out that no, it's really not about you.
Right.
So someone else's salvation is in my hands, or someone else's healing, or someone else's breakthrough, or someone else's peace, it is contribute to me. That's some pressure.
Yeah, pressure. So I immediately started feeling pressure, and I was just like, okay, wait a minute,
And then you have to worry about, so am I doing everything right? Am I, so I get that. That's so crazy, because when I tell you that's exactly how I felt, was like, no, I don't. Who wants the pressure of someone else? Like,
right.
Just let me do me. Just let me be
just
up here, do what I gotta do. Me and God work this thing out, and but I know from looking at it, even when we first discussed it in the beginning stages, that it had nothing to do with you. Which is good. I mean, I think that that's why we're on earth.
Right.
That's why God uses us. That's why we go through things. That's why we have trials and tribulations. But I do feel like it's just only gonna grow from here. So just get ready. I do feel like that. And I feel like it's so much to unpack from just your story. Because I feel like we haven't even, I don't even know how long have we been talking, but for a long time. And we haven't even unpacked
everything.
Like,
right.
We haven't even scratched the surface of.
And I think that's part of what I wanted to do. Like, that was intentional. So like, I'm glad that we, did it this way, because there's no way that I can sit in front of a camera and give you my story and just unpack it from beginning to end, right? There's just no way I can do that. So you get like some of it here. Then when it's another conversation, next guest, you get a little bit there, because every person is going to, like, they're going to just like kind of make me remember different things in different parts of
what
it.
happened,
And so I think that's the beauty of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I want to keep it, I want to keep it real. I want to keep it authentic. I want to keep it, if it's an ugly story, I want it to be an ugly story. If it's a beautiful story, I want it to be a beautiful story. I want it all.
So I think that's what I mean by we haven't even unpacked. I think that I know all the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting for your viewers to just unpack with you as you unpack the good, the bad, the dating part after. Because now I'm a single young lady with 2 boys in
this crazy dating world.
So I mean, that in itself could be a whole podcast.
Yes, it could. Lord, with different parts.
Yeah. Okay. So I just think it's only up from here. And for your viewers, anytime I feel like she's not being authentic and real, I'm gonna get back on this couch and I'm gonna make her tell the good, juicy, all the things that she don't want everyone to know. But yeah, so
yes, most definitely, we will definitely have to do this again. So you will definitely see Santel again. Please believe it. So she'll be here. So thank you so much for doing this for me. Yes, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. I feel like I wasn't too bad. I didn't get all the. We'll save the juicy stuff for later on.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Until next time. See you later. Bye.